Have you ever been in a crowded room, smiling at the right moments, nodding at the right moments, and still felt one ugly little truth buzzing in the back of your head? You are not on the same frequency as everybody else. Not because you think you're better, not because you're trying to feel special, just because something in you keeps catching layers other people never even notice. The room says one thing. Your nervous system hears three more under it. And once you start hearing that second signal, you can't unhear it. You watch people glide through small talk, office rituals, family scripts, all that social theater, and somehow they seem fine with it. Comfortable, casual. Meanwhile, every exchange feels heavier than it should. Every glance has subtext. Every silence has weight. Every decision feels like it comes wrapped in 6 hidden consequences. If that sounds familiar, chances are you spent years calling yourself the problem. Too sensitive, too intense, too difficult, too much. Maybe you even tried to sand yourself down so you could fit into the same easy rhythm as everyone else. Stop right there. That friction you feel is not proof that something is broken. It is data, raw data. Researchers in cognitive psychology and neurobiology keep finding the same thing over and over again. There is a cluster of traits, 10 of them here, that show up in people whose minds are built for depth, not speed. And most people with that wiring spend their lives apologizing for it. They shrink. They soften their edges. They perform being easier to handle. Not today. Today we strip the apology off. We go marker by marker. And I want you to watch how your own life starts making a little more sense with every step. Meetings. Relationships. The weird, quiet moments when your brain refuses to shut up. All of it. By the end, the puzzle stops looking random. It starts looking designed. And the first clue is the way your battery works. Trait 1. The invisible labor of processing. You need a ridiculous amount of solitude. Not because you hate people, because people cost you more than they cost most others. That matters. A lot. You probably have a few people you genuinely love being around. You can be warm, funny, present, fully there. But put you in long group dynamics, networking sludge, social performance marathons, and something inside you just leaks out. That is not ordinary tiredness. Ordinary tiredness says, I need a nap. Yours says, my inner world has been stripped bare. Picture a Friday night event. A normal person walks in and sees a room. You walk in, and your brain starts doing expensive background work. You are not just hearing words. You're tracking micro-expressions, voice shifts, tension spikes, hidden power games, forced laughter, the one person in the corner trying too hard, the manager pretending not to care, the couple silently imploding 3 chairs away. Your mind is building a 3D psychological map in real time. Everyone else is looking at the wallpaper. By the end of the night, you can barely form another sentence. It feels like somebody pulled the plug. You need to get away, shut the door, sit in silence, and let the whole system cool down. That is not weakness. It is not antisocial behavior either. It is low stimulation recovery. Your brain has been running hot, and it needs a real shutdown cycle. Society loves to call that aloofness, or arrogance, or some delicate little personality defect. Fine. Let them be wrong. Because that processing doesn't end when the room empties. It follows you home, straight into the way you think. And that leads to the next trait. Trait 2. The refusal of the surface. You cannot leave a thing alone once you know there is more under it. Put you in a meeting, a classroom, a conversation, and somebody gives the standard answer. The room accepts it. Fine. Case closed. Not for you. Inside your head, the alarm goes off. Why? Why that answer? Why that framework? What's underneath it? What assumption is hiding there? What happens if that assumption fails? You keep peeling until you hit bedrock. Then you ask what bedrock is sitting on. People have probably told you that you overcomplicate things. Maybe they've told you to relax, stop digging, let it go. They mean well. They're still wrong. Psychology would call this a very high need for cognitive closure paired with serious analytical depth. In plain English, your mind hates unfinished logic. Half-truths itch. Bad reasoning sparks. Loose ends stay lit until you deal with them. Studies on need for cognition point to the same pattern. Some people enjoy thinking because it is pleasant. You enjoy it because understanding has a physical pull. You can carry complexity without flattening it into something fake and easy. That comes with a price. Your brain doesn't always let you sleep at 2 a.m. if a paradox is still on the table. Lovely gift. Truly. But the upside is brutal clarity. You see the gears. Other people just see the paint. And once you see what's real, you get very selective about where your energy goes. Trait 3. The unbribable engine. At some point in your life, an authority figure probably looked at you and said some version of unfulfilled potential. Teacher, parent, manager, boss. Same idea, different costume. They saw that you could do more, and they could not understand why you wouldn't throw your full force behind their little target, their little metric, their little shiny promise of approval. Picture a boss offering you a promotion, better title, better pay, more responsibility. Also, the quiet expectation that you'll burn your evenings and weekends on a project you already know is hollow. Most people would bite immediately. Not you. Your mind runs a private audit before it spends a single joule of effort. Does this matter? Is this real? Does this fit who I am? Or is this just a performance with a paycheck attached? If the answer is no, the engine idles. That is not laziness. That is not poor discipline. That is a refusal to waste finite life force on garbage. Research on intrinsic motivation backs this up. If something does not connect to your internal value system, external rewards lose their grip. Titles, praise, pressure, money, applause, all of it slides off if the work feels dead. You either care intensely or you do not move. That is the deal. Institutions hate that, by the way. They are built for compliance, not integrity. They know exactly what to do with obedient people. They do not know what to do with someone who wants meaning before motion. And because you can't be bribed into fake passion, you also get very good at spotting fake passion in other people. Which brings us here. Trait 4. The burden of X-ray vision. You walk into a room and the emotional map starts loading. Think about a dinner party. People are laughing, passing food, trading stories, acting like everything is smooth. Then you watch one couple for 10 seconds and the whole scene changes. The husband smiles half a beat too late. The wife's shoulders stay locked. His tone has a tiny edge under the polite words. You know, with a strange and awful certainty, that the marriage is already cracking. This is not magic. No aura reading nonsense. It is high-effective empathy fused with extremely advanced social processing. Your brain is pulling in non-conscious signals by the truckload and assembling them before your conscious mind even finishes the sentence. The consequence is strange. You often understand other people better than they understand themselves. That sounds powerful because it is. It is also lonely as hell. You carry information nobody handed you. You see fears, defenses, grudges, private griefs, the tiny fractures people keep hidden even from themselves. And once you see it, it stays seen. Then comes the curse inside the gift. You start craving somebody who can do the same to you. Somebody who can look through the mask and still find you. Not your role, not your polished version. You. Finding that person can feel like walking a desert. Still, the mind that sees so much needs a serious stabilizer. Otherwise, all that emotional data would flatten you. So your system built one. Trait 5. The anchor in the storm. When chaos hits, your emotional volume drops. Not because you do not feel it, because you do. Deeply. A crisis at work, a medical emergency, a family rupture. While everyone else panics, collapses, lashes out, or loses the thread, something in you steps forward and takes over. The world gets slow. You get quiet. You sort the variables. You assess the threat. You choose action over display. People often mistake that for coldness. They see calm and think you feel nothing. Cute theory. Completely wrong. What you are showing is distress tolerance. The ability to stay functional while the room burns. Most people spend years in therapy, meditation, breathwork, or stoic philosophy trying to build even a fraction of that. You came with it wired in. Somewhere early, your nervous system learned how to carry weight without snapping. That is survival intelligence. It may look like detachment from the outside. It is not. You feel the storm. You just refuse to hand it the steering wheel. And yes, that usually starts early, which explains why your childhood probably felt a little older than it should have. Trait 6. The time traveler's dilemma. You have probably felt like an adult dropped into the wrong decade of your own life. Maybe you were a kid in class, or a 20-something at some loud, messy bar, and you looked around at your peers like you were studying a species that moved too slowly to be real. Gossip, status games, trend chasing, tiny social wars. You were already elsewhere. You may have been drawn to older people, dense books, strange art, big questions, the kind nobody your age wanted to touch yet. Mortality, identity, meaning. The whole brutal bundle. That has a name in psychology. Precocious development. Not just being smart, not just reading early. It is the early arrival of existential awareness. You were already wrestling with the machinery of life while everyone else was still figuring out prom dates and outfits. That can feel like a gift. It can also feel like exile. You hit one kind of maturity early, and now you're sitting there waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Good luck with that. And when you see the big questions too early, one ghost tends to follow you for years. Trait 7. The phantom of potential. There is a version of you that walks beside you all the time. Not metaphorically. Well, yes, metaphorically. But you know exactly what I mean. You carry a brutal awareness of the gap between what you are now and what you could become if every piece lined up. That gap does not stay quiet. It haunts. Most people negotiate with their limits early. They hit resistance, lower the target, declare victory, and go get dinner. You do not have that luxury. You know too much. That is why 3 a.m. can feel so heavy. Not just tired, haunted. Researchers on gifted and highly capable populations talk about the achievement capability gap, and this is it. The pain of knowing your inner horsepower outruns the world you currently get to drive. You are not just ambitious. You grieve unfinished versions of yourself. The books unwritten, the systems unbuilt, the impact still trapped behind logistics, money, timing, fear. That kind of grief is not dramatic. It is quiet, which makes it worse. And when you carry that much unrealized weight, shallow daily chatter starts to feel physically abrasive. Which brings us to the next problem. Trait 8. The allergy to the shallow. Small talk does not merely bore you. Your body treats it like an insult. Think elevator, mandatory lunch, a long conversation about traffic, weather, celebrity nonsense, all the low-grade social static people use to avoid silence. Your throat tightens. Your eyes glaze. It feels like wearing a suit made of sandpaper. Arthur Aaron's research on the need for depth in social connection points straight at this. Some people are built for meaningful exchange. Surface chatter drains them because it never touches anything alive. That does not mean you want a bigger contact list. You do not. You probably do not need 50 more names and a few more likes on your posts. You want the opposite. One real conversation. One brutal, unmasked exchange. What keeps them up at night? What they're ashamed of? What they want and are too scared to name? When the world gets loud and hollow enough, silence starts to look like oxygen. And that is where the next trait lives. Trait 9. The architecture of silence. Silence does not scare you the way it scares most people. You do not need background noise to exist in your own house. No TV in the corner. No podcast while washing dishes. No constant sonic wallpaper, so your thoughts don't catch up to you. You can sit next to someone you love for 3 hours and say almost nothing, and still feel close, still feel safe, still feel connected. A lot of people cannot do that. Silence corners them. It forces them to hear their own private noise, the regrets, the insecurities, the unfinished grief they have spent years drowning out. So they keep the air full. Music, scrolling, chatter, anything but the quiet. You have already walked through the ugly rooms inside your own head. That is the difference. You have looked at your fears, your flaws, your darker corners, And instead of running, you sorted them, named them, made peace with them. So your silence is not empty. It is earned. It is a room you built and furnished yourself. It is where your best ideas arrive. And still, even with all that inner order, there is one final reality waiting outside the door. Trait 10. The resonance paradox. You know the difference between being lonely and being existentially alone. Loneliness hurts. It says, I want company. Existential isolation says something colder. It says, even when I am held, I am still not fully known. Picture romance. You are lying next to someone who loves you. They say the words. They mean them. But you can feel, with a strange and precise ache, that they are loving a version of you they built from fragments. They know you, but they do not fully see you. The architecture is too deep, too layered, too strange to fit into the version they carry. That is not a failure of love. It is a limit of perception. You can marry, build a family, move through society, play your role cleanly, and still feel that the truest version of your mind has never met an equal twin. Researchers call this existential isolation. Not illness, not pathology, a feature of highly individuated consciousness. Geometrically, it makes perfect sense. The more precise, detailed, and complex your inner shape becomes, the harder it is to find another shape that locks into it without gaps. You are not broken because you do not dissolve into the crowd. You are built too precisely for that. These 10 markers are your baseline code. The world has spent years turning them against you. Your need for solitude was called arrogance. Your depth was called neurosis. Your calm in crisis was called cold. Your hatred of small talk was called snobbery. Your isolation was treated like a defect to be fixed. They saw the behavior. They missed the meaning. That is the whole tragedy. These are not glitches. They are load-bearing beams. And once you stop apologizing for a mind that refuses to be simple, everything shifts. You stop performing. You stop shrinking. You stop trying to turn yourself into a smaller, more convenient person. But if those 10 markers hit too close, there is more underneath. 4 deeper patterns. The hidden rules running the whole machine. And the first one changes how you handle your own ego. Meta pattern 1. The ego detachment. Everybody says they are open-minded. Everybody. It is one of those claims people love to make about themselves right before reality humiliates them. Your mind works differently. For most people, a challenge to their beliefs feels like a threat. Identity and opinion are welded together, so being wrong feels like being attacked. That is why arguments get ugly so fast. Confirmation bias filters out anything inconvenient. A comfortable lie often feels safer than a disruptive truth. You run the opposite program. Imagine you have believed something for 10 years. Then someone presents a clean argument that blows it apart. A lot of people would get defensive, angry, sarcastic, territorial. You feel the initial hit, then the clarity rushes in. The ego loses, but the mind wins. And weirdly, that feels good. That takes real intellectual humility. Not fake humility. Real humility. You separate your identity from your current idea. You care about learning more than looking right. That is why being wrong tomorrow matters more to you than being protected yesterday. You let bad ideas die. That kind of honesty does not stop at thought. It controls what you allow into your head in the first place. Meta pattern 2. The attention economy. You are viciously selective with attention. A lot of modern culture treats intelligence like trivia hoarding. News feeds, hot takes, endless commentary, never missing a trend. You don't buy it. Before you open a notification, enter a petty argument, or let some manufactured outrage hijack your mood. One question rises up inside you. Is this worth my processing power? That question saves lives, or at least sanity. You watch people get farmed by endless scrolling, their emotions being steered by algorithms for hours at a time. You refuse the game. Research on cognition is clear about this. Fragmented attention wrecks synthesis. Constant context switching turns a sharp mind into a noisy one. So you protect your focus. You also quit the dumb little status game. Who earns more? Who posts better vacations? Who seems happier? Who appears to be winning the race? You noticed early that the race is fake and the finish line keeps moving. You stopped asking, how do I compare? You started asking, am I becoming someone I can respect? That changes everything. When your worth comes from internal standards, the crowd loses its leverage. Meta pattern 3. The immunity to consensus. You have a near physical resistance to mob thinking. Look at the old Asch conformity experiments. Normal people picked obvious wrong answers just to avoid standing apart from the group. Truth lost to social safety. Your wiring resists that. Imagine a boardroom. The CEO pitches a bad idea. Everyone nods because nobody wants friction. You feel sick. Not metaphorically. Actually sick. Faking agreement to soothe the room feels worse than standing alone and saying no. You are not contrarian for sport. You just refuse to bend reality to keep somebody else comfortable. That puts you in a strange position. Even while you are talking, a second layer of awareness is floating above the room. It watches the group dynamic, the hidden motives, the logical cracks, the social enforcement mechanisms. That is exhausting. Also useful. Painfully useful. It lets you see patterns before they become public. Sometimes long before. So you stop chasing applause. You start hunting for structural truth. And if you want truth in a chaotic world, you need a private place to test the future before it arrives. Meta pattern 4. The future simulator. You spend a shocking amount of your life inside futures that do not exist yet. From the outside, people might call that anxiety or daydreaming. Cognitive science gives it a better name: prospective thinking. Your brain runs high-resolution simulations all the time. It plays mental chess with reality. You test consequences. You map risks. You trace the collateral damage of choices you have not even made. That is not avoidance. That is stress testing life before life gets a chance to blindside you. Because of that, you often dodge disasters other people walk straight into. You see the cliff early. They are still staring at their shoes. But nobody throws a parade for invisible disasters avoided. So people call you hesitant, cautious, overthinking. They cannot see the architecture you built behind your eyes. You also know how to use boredom. Most minds panic and avoid. They rush for noise. You use silence as raw material. Research on creativity keeps showing that original thought needs low external input. Quiet is not empty. It is fertile. Give your mind enough room, and it starts connecting strange things. History to psychology. Physics to art. That is integrative complexity. You are not wandering. You are building a map of how reality hangs together. And in that map, failure stops being an identity. It becomes information. By the time all these systems start working together, a clearer principle emerges. It is the difference between being smart and being wise. You do not grab at quick conclusions. You practice patience with reality. Most people use fast, sloppy heuristics to sort strangers in seconds. Good, bad, safe, dangerous. Done. You refuse to close the file that fast. You let people stay ambiguous. You watch how they behave under pressure, under power, under scrutiny, when they think no one is looking. And when you look back at your own life, you do not store it like a neat timeline of dates. Your memory runs on meaning, psychological themes, lessons, the burns, the betrayals, the wins. Everything gets stripped down to what it taught you about human nature. When somebody attacks you, you do not just explode or fold. You cut through the noise. You remove their projection. You keep the sliver of truth that can sharpen you. That is epistemic curiosity. Not needing guaranteed answers to keep moving. Being willing to stay with the mystery. Average people chase intelligence like a trophy. Data for dominance. Facts for argument. Knowledge for status. Your architecture is built for something heavier. Wisdom. Intelligence knows the answer. Wisdom asks whether the question deserved the energy in the first place. Wisdom stays curious without becoming arrogant. It keeps listening long after the crowd has decided it already knows enough. So if any of this felt uncomfortably exact, do not turn it into a reason to feel above anyone else. That is just the ego wearing a nicer coat. It will isolate you all over again. The real move is ruthless self-awareness. Because every advantage has a cost. That is how the system works. There are no free gifts in human biology. Extreme empathy brings extreme heartbreak. Deep analysis brings deep isolation. Seeing what is coming means you will sometimes have to watch people you love walk straight into mistakes you warned them about years ago. The mistake was never your wiring. The mistake was letting a world built for the average convince you that your specialized hardware was a defect. Stop downgrading yourself so other people feel comfortable. Stop treating solitude like a moral failure. Stop pretending shallow noise deserves your attention when it leaves you numb. Build your life around the way your mind actually works. Choose environments that ask for depth. Choose work that rewards precision. Choose people who can meet you in the dark, not just in the sunshine. Most of all, stop measuring your worth by how well you can imitate the crowd. History does not remember the conformists. It belongs to the outliers. The ones who carried their complexity without shame. The ones who let the strange shape of their mind lead them toward truth. So the question is not, why am I so different? The question is, what is this difference built to do? If this hits something you have been carrying alone for years, do not write a long speech about it. Drop a single number in the comments. One trait. The one you have wrestled with the longest. Let that number stand there. Quiet proof that you are not the only one hearing this frequency. Subscribe and stay here with us. Take care of your mind. It is processing the universe at a depth most people never even notice.